money miners. Another bloody... I was looking forward to quarterlies, and as per usual, now I'm done with them. So
Second last day, mate.
We're getting to the end. The end of the quarterlies, but the start of the rise of Axis mining technology, I'd say. Someone better have taken up that free trial for the gyro or the Ori. JD, if I offered you a free bike, you'd take it, wouldn't you?
It's a no-brainer.
It is exact. JD loves cycling, and if you love to know where your drill holes are, get your free trial with Axis. Easy as that. Boys, we've got a bit going on today. Jesus, just a good chunk of change swapped over on FMG stock. Holy snapping duck shit. And it continues because it's happened bloody not long ago, and it is the same mob.
There's a story to it, mate. There's a
story.
theme that, the shareholders, maybe bearish iron ore, bullish copper. I'll get to that. It's always BHP.
Bearish Andrew Forrest.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think it's just more thematic. But and also BHP's bullish copper, bearish iron ore, because they're buying Filo with Lundins.
Yes.
Huge.
Bloody all go.
Maybe not bearish iron ore, but they're definitely bullish copper.
Yeah. What are we? Oh, they bloody...
They're far too wedded to
They
iron
can't
ore.
make shitloads of money all the time. What else we got, buddy? What do we got? We've got a Perseus quarterly. We've got IGO.
Yep.
Bit of bloody some good copper drill intersections floating around at the moment.
Let's rip in, Matty.
In there. Let's rip in. Right.
FMG.
Good old straight talk, the source of all early news. Come out yesterday saying, essentially a big bloody 1.1. No, it didn't even say that. 1.1 billion of stock of FMG was block traded on the 14th of June at $21.60. And now it came out yesterday, there was another big block on offer. And you look at the trade this morning, $1.85 billion was block traded at a share price of $18.55. And I think it's been confirmed that it is the Capital Group, and I think that'll take them down to about 3.4% shareholding in FMG. So FMG share price was $30 at the start of the year, so down nearly 40% since then. So, and look, what they're attributing the reason for these big instos maybe getting out of FMG, but like export volumes were actually down for FMG year on year for the first time in 5 years, only by not much, but didn't grow. Costs are rising in WA operations, which we all know. Hydrogen, I think that pipe dream is going to be a flop, it appears, temporarily.
You could say they've cut off spending towards it, at least the amount of spending that they'd been projecting previously.
Yeah, so it's a bit uncertain there. Constantly seeing executives departing the business, Iron Bridge water queries, the big China bet on iron ore. I'm sensing an injection right now of Jonas Benedict Dooling for a bit of a macro point of view of what's going on with the steel, iron ore, China business.
Mate, this has got to be one of the most looked at parts of the global economy. So no new insight here, but just look at what the market's done. And the price broke through US $100 a ton for the first time in a long time, and it's sort of held below there.
Broke through the wrong way.
The wrong way, yeah. So that was seen as a sort of support level. And iron ore prices, no secret, they've been very high for a very long time, leading to huge profits for the likes of FMG and others. And one other thing to sort of point out, Trav, we spoke about this yesterday. There was a steel maker in China, Jiangsu Delong. They're struggling. They have a lot of counterparties, a lot of people they do business with, in particular a large commodity trader in China as well, who has sort of been tied into their downfall in a way. That commodity trading partner's stock has come off almost 40% in the space of a few weeks due to counterparty risk is how investors are viewing that. And it's sort of long been thought in China that the CCP, no matter what the issue, just steps in. And we haven't seen that yet. So maybe we see that down the track, but that's not even mentioning all these issues around the property sector that have been well fleshed out for the best part of 3 years now. Evergrande and others struggling there. A lot of sort of unfinished projects, developments across the country. So,
and why is that? Is that lack of material supply, costs? Bloody the demand isn't there. What is the underlying factor? Do you know? Yeah, it's pretty hard to ask you to summarise the Chinese property market very quickly.
I mean, it had just been growing so phenomenally strongly for such a sustained period of time. It makes up an abnormally large portion of their economy versus any other developed country, and sort of
it's not growth in the sense of like, oh, this is organic growth. People want to necessarily like live in these new buildings that have popped up. In a lot of the cases, it was like incentivized growth. So you'd have the Chinese government or its municipalities provide super low cost like lending or
incentives,
incentives for doing these enormous kind of property developments and stuff like that, which require a whole bunch of steel, iron ore to go into it. But it's not like there's all these ghost towns and stuff like that people can look into that have been talked about for a long time.
And there's a wealth effect of sorts as the property prices go up across the country. People feel wealthier, they spend more across the economy, and that kind of goes both ways to an extent, So I'm sure like what we're seeing now is going to be a long unwinding, and there was a big plenary meeting of the CCP just a couple of weeks ago, and there wasn't the stimulus for the likes of the copper refiners and the steel makers and the property players that was perhaps expected. And that's one of the reasons iron ore has been weak. Copper has been, very weak the last month or so. And, I think we're going to hear a lot more about this over the next 6 months, in particular being in Perth, obviously, because it's plays such a huge role in our economy.
Maybe the fundy bets from the end of last year are a bit delayed, but they might come true by the end of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those ones had been sort of
were bearish iron ore.
Yep. Yeah, you're spot on, mate. They had been for a number of years prior, but they might be right this time.
Maybe. Right, Trav, tell me about the Capital Group.
Yeah, I think like all the Aussie reporting on this is really quick to just talk about how, the world's turned on Andrew Forrest, but I looked at the seller here, and I think it's actually less a story about Twiggy and his evolution as a leader over time. And it's much more about the macro context here. When you look at what the Capital Group, who was the $2 billion seller of stock, what they've been doing over time. And JD, you told me they're a multi-trillion-dollar global asset manager, like an enormous allocator of capital in the global economy. But I did some digging into just their metals and mining positions only to see what have they been rotating out of and what have they been rotating into, to see if there's like a bit of a theme there. And in the metals and mining space, they've substantially trimmed pure play iron ore exposure and substantially added copper exposure. I'll show you what I mean. Right? Look at this chart. Look at the change in holding column there. So there's roughly like the last 12 months change in what their ownership position is in percentage terms. Their Fortescue position was trimmed 37%, and that's before today's $2 billion sale. Vale position trimmed 37%. Barrick, another big one that was trimmed 31%. On the buying side there, Freeport increased 38%. Grupo Mexico increased 24%. First Quantum increased 26%. Antofagasta increased 450%, but from a small base. And then Newmont up 56%, but again on a small base. So
is Grupo Mexico, is that copper?
Yeah, that's like the head co of Southern Copper. You can think of.
Yes. The infamous Southern Copper trap.
Yeah. So look, I think the theme's pretty clear there. One of the largest global asset managers is bearish iron ore, bullish copper. You look at what they did with BHP; they're pretty flat, of course. They've like BHP's got exposure to both copper and iron ore, and we'll talk about the copper bit soon. And interestingly, they've added 22% to their Rio Tinto position, which kind of fascinated me because at its core, Rio's still a big iron ore company, but they've actually got quite a lot of attractive copper growth about their portfolio too. Oyu Tolgoi is ramping up like dramatically.
Watching the video with JD there, go onto YouTube and bloody check the video. That is like they can haul, I think if it's all and flat out every day, 50 million tonne from underground.
It's insane.
In hoisting. Like that is like a freaking bigger than an iron ore, like bigger than most iron ore operations.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It's phenomenal.
So I think that's like, ramping pretty substantially over the next like 5-6 years to get to over that 1 million tonne per annum kind of copper production on in its own right.
So that's going to be up there with, I know Escondida used to do 1.4, I think, million tonne per copper a year. So that is from an underground operation getting up to that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And a lazy 600,000 plus ounces of gold as well.
Yeah, just not much. You get it for free, JD.
Credit.
Yeah, good is it?
Yeah, so like, plus also, if you are bearish iron ore, why might you be bearish iron ore? well, probably more the demand stuff, but on the supply side, you've got, Simandou coming online, the touted Pilbara killer, and Rio Tinto actually has an economic interest in that project, so maybe they're, net, like better than the other iron ore parties, if that was the view the Capital Group has. But, regardless, it's just like, this is kind of fascinating. Multi-trillion-dollar asset manager has taken a pretty high conviction move that, iron ore is not looking rosy from here.
Isn't it funny? You
Onslow,
you buy Rio and you're hedging yourself. But you're long. Interesting. And short, you'd be hedging too. Oh, it's fucking fascinating. Just getting my head around me pod,
Now they still own a fair chunk of Fortescue and also Vale as well. So I'd be on the lookout for any more of these trimmings to come. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, geez. Well, imagine if the iron ore price does hold up and you pick Fortescue up cheap for the divvy. Whoa, mate, fucking good for a yield investor. Yeah. Anyway, so copper. There's the world's largest miner, Mr. BHP, has bloody gone in. This has been talked about a bit. Led by you and Koala all over Twitter.
Yeah, it was before my time. But Koala called this one pretty well.
Yeah, so BHP's going to JV with Lundin to buy Filo del Sol, Josemaria. Take it away. What's going on?
Yeah, mate. So this is a big deal. Like, this is a really fucking big deal. I don't want to understate it. This stuff is so rare. But your BHP spending US $2.1 billion to form a 50-50 JV with Lundin Mining to hold both the Filo del Sol and the Josemaria copper projects located in the Vicuña district of Argentina. BHP and Lundin, they're going to acquire Filo Mining, and then Lundin will sell 50% of its Josemaria project to BHP, which is, located about 10 k's away. Lundin Mining currently owns 100% of that Josemaria project and 33% of Filo Mining shares. So both projects are undeveloped, but Josemaria is fully permitted, whereas Filo del Sol is the much bigger, more attractive prize, but it needs more time to drill up properly. And meanwhile, you've got this perfect confluence of circumstances in Argentina with Milei there, pro mining. You got to act now, so you can and you got shared infrastructure opportunities. You can plan properly, put the two together under a JV, and just kind of you can do things properly the right way with a long term outlook and the right partners and the right political regime, which is a big thing of what's happening now. The joint consideration for what Filo shareholders are effectively kind of, getting paid here is in Canadian dollar terms, $4.1 billion for Filo Mining. That's a 32% premium to their undisturbed 30-day VWAP. Big, we're talking big fucking numbers for an undeveloped project. It's and it's one of the amazing things in our industry when people get to ride, the beautiful first leg of the Lassonde curve to a corporate acquisition from a tier one like miner, and when that happens from a major, it's rare, it's crazy, it's awesome, and it's this huge liquidity event for the shareholders that got to sort of be set early. And you hear the story, sort of they ruminate decades later. How many people did kind of hear, oh yeah, no, I was in Sirius, on the initial drill hole, or
I was in Line Town from the start. I just didn't get bored.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, mate. This might be the most exciting deal that has that we've definitely spoken about. I'm so pumped about this for a number of reasons. And first and foremost, it's not just, mines that are in operation shifting hands from one operator to another. This is a company taking a big view. Granted, it's only a small slice, versus their market cap, but it's still a big bet that Mike Henry's name is going to be attached to. And they are taking the view. They're taking a view on something that, like Koala has laid out in his long post and we've spoken about in the past, is going to be an asset that generates cash for decades and decades and decades to come if they execute well on it. So I think it's the second part of the chapter, given that BHP were 7% shareholders in Filo already. But the second part of their chapter in what's going to be hopefully a long partnership that delivers a lot of copper that will be needed in future.
I put the question to you guys early today, like, can you just remember or rattle off the top of your head, when's the last time you saw an undeveloped project? And this is early stage. It's not still drilling out. When's the last time an undeveloped project, sold for a $4.5 billion price tag, right? Like, can you remember any? And we struggled. we were like scratching our heads for a while, like in recent
we
history.
we said Sirius and over.
Well, Sirius was 1.8 billion Aussie, so it's
Yep.
like
Not even
three
close.
times bigger than that. And over at 1.7 billion Aussie, so again 3 times bigger than that.
Yeah, Voices Bay, which we chatted about.
Voices
So
Bay,
it
or
was Andover that 1.7 was that for
Aussie?
on a 100% basis?
that was for Azure, and I mean Creasy's
60,
stake is there,
yeah,
but you know,
I mean,
you,
yeah.
as a shareholder, you kind of and then Voices Bay. That's you're going back to 1996, right?
Yeah.
At Diamond Fields, that was thanks to the competitive tension created by Robert Friedland. That went for Canadian like
One of a
4.5
kind.
billion, which is about the same price tag. I mean, inflation adjusted, it's different.
Yeah.
And then I had to look into it, but Rio Tinto, they paid US 3.9 billion for that Riversdale in Mozambique, the coal fucking barging thing, which eventually got written down to zero. It's all a bloody scam. So anyway, hopefully this isn't that. I don't think it is, but these are rare, right? There's probably missed a few in there, and I hope the money miners just bloody comment, tell me what I missed. The big, huge, undeveloped projects that had giant price tags. I'd love a full list of them. They're rare, they're special, and I think there's quite a few talking points, and I'll sort of bring them up, and we can have a bit of a discussion about them.
Let's do it.
First one, here's BHP's copper growth story. Forget Anglo.
Yeah. I think
Any numbers around what this could produce or not?
Mate, the world is your oyster here. You've got a huge, hugely expandable thing. Josemaria, the numbers are pretty kind of concrete. That's it's got an advanced study on it. It's fully permitted, but that's sort of the side burner to Filo del Sol, where you've got an enormous porphyry that's sort of getting bigger and bigger over time,
And some phenomenal grades at depth.
Escondida didn't start out producing what it's producing today, but there were these incremental expansions that happened over time, and that Escondida is what it is today from those the optionality of the expansion cases. So it's not like you necessarily go to market and you say it's going to produce this, because everyone just looks at the capex and thinks, oh fuck, I can't fund that. Especially you've got Lundin with 50%. But it might be. It's going to be one of those sorts of assets that has this phenomenal capability to meaningfully expand over and over again at a lower and lower capital intensity than the last time.
Yeah.
So sort of two parts to that one. The word, firstly, that always comes to mind, optionality. That's it was front and center in BHP's announcement today, and the other part of what you've just said there is Anglo, and how much people were still baking in anticipation of BHP, coming back down the future. So
Has it really squashed it, but?
It has lessened the likelihood.
I think BHP has got, more than its fair share of copper growth that it can. If this is the decision it's made, all of the capital that you were going to throw at just buying Anglo, you can do more thoughtfully in a way and get a larger share of of copper growth.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite a larger share. And Anglo's got its own copper growth stuff as well, but it's you can steer the path here. Yeah.
I mean, never say never. If they execute terribly on their plan and they're still dirt cheap, you'd think it'd interest it, but you'd have to mark down the odds materially on this announcement today. It's a lot of money that BHP is going to be sinking into another project, and that takes a bit of less capital away that they could have deployed elsewhere. Raises
the question, because it was such a poorly executed approach to Anglo, as we discussed with Seppo. Was it Plan B? How close were they in the pecking order? I think it was the Lundins who kind of made a deal come to fruition here by forcing BHP's hand in some ways, but yeah, it just goes to show they were completely kind of committed to advancing this project as well as an alternative. There are some interesting parts of the deal permutations though, and that's that one of the deal elements that Koala had written about was the potential for Filo shareholders to get a royalty spinco, a 1 or 2% net smelter royalty on Filo. That could be worth fucking anything. Pick your number. It'd be an amazing kind of asset to own. So unfortunately, Filo shareholders aren't going to get that in this deal that's come to market. You'd imagine it was probably a talking point in negotiations, and the fact that it's not here in the final deal tells you, I think, everything you need to know about how BHP thinks about royalties. Remember what happened when SolGold did their fucking royalty, and again BHP had a stake in that in Cascabel. So to all the MDs out there with the project, if you think it's capable of a tier one, like acquisition one day, don't put a fucking royalty on it.
Unless it's coming to you.
Yeah, I think
he said it wasn't Koala saying that it was also BHP were going to sole fund Josemaria, but it's going to be 50-50 now. They're just buying the 50% off.
Not necessarily sole fund, but more that it would be, there'd be like a fully funded pathway for Josemaria to come online. I haven't done the full numbers on how much cash is going to be in Lundin and everything like that. And Lundin's also flagged that they might sell some of their other mines as well. Yep. Lundin shares are notably down 10% today, and part of that's probably just the merger arb kind of dynamic going in here. But yeah, and the other part too was, this is a 50-50 JV instead of a 49-51. So the actual, I think that's an important piece, because for the Lundins, they would would be an important consideration for them to have a lot of say, or I would have thought final say on the kind of capital allocation, like any free cash flow out of Josemaria, right? If you had complete control over it, you'd want to be throwing that into Filo.to to get that expedited and pre-strip as much as you possibly can. But if it's BHP that had majority kind of control, then you've got all these other kind of capital considerations in your business, and it might be better going to iron ore, for example. And that was a limiting factor for Turquoise Hill. If you go back to Mongolia and everything, they had a minority shareholder.
Rio had them by the balls.
Totally. Yeah. So at least 50-50 is a lot better than I think it was 30-70 or something like that with Turquoise Hill.
So I assume BHP will be the operator?
Yeah, it's unclear at this stage. It basically just says a 50-50 JV, and that'll be the framework for it. This is the head kind of. We're going to form a binding joint venture framework. I think we'll get more details on the call, but I just look at it as a 50-50 JV. I'm not sure who the operator is. They might actually, form a joint venture and staff it, together, as opposed to have one single operator. I'm not entirely sure.
And then there'll be a big state royalty attached to it, coming out of there, I'd assume, to Argentina, and a bit to Chile maybe, because it straddles the border.
Yeah, this is an Argentina story. This one, yeah. I mean, there's potential for infrastructure advantages if you can chuck a pipeline over through Chile into here, and that helps your kind of water situation and scenario over the long run. But
doesn't Filo.to straddle the border, Bud, or it's close to it?
The border is the crescent of the mountain, and it does, and it spills into the Argentinian side of the mountains.
Yeah.
So order of how it's looking is that Josemaria's project number one, that's then going to feed to build Filo.to, because Josemaria is obviously a lot more advanced and ready to be developed,
fully permitted. Yeah. And I mean, capex on that alone is, I think it's like 6 or 7 billion. So it's no slim picking. There's big capex there.
Canadian or US?
God, I can't remember.
It's big.
It's big. Regardless, the cool thing now, the fact that you've got Lundins and BHP in joint venture owning both assets, you can plan from the start the right capex to see both of these projects, and maybe even down the track also NGEX, in a really kind of sustainable way. You think about, your water situation for the long term. You think about your roads for the long term. You think about your site layout for the long term, knowing that you've got both of these, not your neighbour who you're hoping goes broke and you take over it on the cheap or whatever.
God, isn't it funny?
Like a Pilgan and Pilgan.
Isn't it funny watching these ramp ups? Will be like, I won't be checking any 5B statements to see if they're going to capital raise. It's so much different, these big companies. It's not the funding it's just so different to the smaller developers that we talk about. It's just a totally different league.
Yeah.
Even if there's a $3 billion capex blowout, they just doesn't really matter to them.
Yeah.
Effectively.
It
much does more a little bit, but
much more on the BHP side, right? This is as material as it will ever, or as material as it will get for Lundin versus their history.
Yeah.
Who knows where they go from here?
This is huge for this is a multi-generational asset, to say the least. This thing will, like Filo could be, still mining 100 years from now. Like think of that as the Lundin family who does think long term and all that sort of stuff.
Fuck, I hope this is the start of the ball rolling in frigging all these idle projects that have been waiting to be bought, because it's going to make our lives so much fun.
It will, yeah.
Especially if I own them.
I think it's not clear cut that just because BHP and Lundin are buying Filo that other stuff gets bought, because is it still cheaper to buy companies than it is to build? Probably. Is there a big difference between Filo and the next best undeveloped copper project? Yes. So, yeah.
Be interesting to see now if, as you said, Anglo's down, but you'd think if you're a Rio or a Glencore,
mate, licking your lips,
because you're like, that's one less person likely to compete with. Like,
licking your lips.
Best thing they could have bloody heard.
Yeah, totally. Licking your lips.
One more time.
Licking your lips. On Anglo, mate, like, I don't understand how Duncan can have his job 12 months from now. Like, you're supposed to be proving your strategy to go it alone, and all you've done is just fucking kick your foot into the post fucking 5 times instead. It's just, yeah, I can't picture any scenario where he still runs that company 12 months from now. I mean, what the gold alone strategy, what have they done today? Oh, the first win we're going to do, we sell our coal assets. Well, yeah, when you fucking have a fire in Grosvenor and you're still going ahead with your sale process. We're going to demerge. We're going to sell De Beers. We're going to demerge Amplat. So Amplat is that is happening, it's progressing, blah, blah, blah. De Beers, it looks too hard to get anywhere with the Botswana government for at least 12 months. So they're kind of reevaluating in 12 months' time. Woodsmith, they kept in their strategy and just wrote it down, and no one else believes in that except for Duncan. And it was, the project that he wanted more than anyone. So he just has to go.
Put the call out. Big fella's been given the kiss of death by Rick Ardinio. Right, JD, IGO, buddy, is the business stabilising? Are they making a bit of cash? What's going on, mate?
Oh, yes,
bloody
and
confusing, isn't it?
Yes,
there's a bit of yes,
no.
bit of no.
Exactly. Is it stabilising? Yeah, maybe at near rock bottom. So. But they've got a great asset, so we should run through some of the numbers that stand out. Free cash build, they claimed at 201 million. There's a few sort of caveats to that. They'd obviously received the divvy of about 160 million from TLEA, which we talked about, and had a big impairment on the exploration portfolio. They seem to have been able to stem the losses out of Cosmos, 7 million in net operating outflows there. So that's no longer the massive cash sink it once was. It's still, it's been a big loss, and it's still costing them cash.
Money.
Yeah. So they end the quarter with just under $470 million plus 700 million in debt that is undrawn. So
ready to go.
M&A in the future.
Right, out the bloody golden child, Mr. Greenbushes go.
Better.
I said Mr. twice. I should say Mrs. Keep everyone happy. Mrs. Greenbushes.
So output up 20% and cash costs down a bit over 10%. Selling product at US $1,020 FOB Australia. So at the point it leaves there. If you look back on FY24, IGO's realised sales price from Greenbushes was on average 3,360 Aussie bucks or $2,200 US dollars. So that's 140% higher than what spot prices were when I looked this morning, which is, that's a pretty startling number when you look forward, because nobody's anticipating prices to hold 2,200 for the year to come. So the kicker is $900 million in capex. That came in way higher than what consensus had been estimating, which was under $600 million. So the big ticket items there are the expansion costs that they've got for CGP3. They've got increased stripping costs, TSF expansion as well, and a few other items there. But that is a lot of money. Obviously, these numbers I'm talking about here is for Greenbushes, not all IGO costs, but they're big costs, and that sort of delta between what consensus was really sort of stands out to me, and it sort of leads you to thinking, what is what's CapEx going to be going forward? Obviously, they're doing a big expansion on a particular plant here, so you don't expect that number to be the number that's set in stone. But there's a lot of, I'd imagine, inflation baked into what was initially the cost for CGP3 and other things playing their sort of role, which does more than raise a bit of an eyebrow.
Yeah, right. So Kwinana, they've had a double-digit growth in the production of lithium hydroxide, JD.
Phenomenal. So bearing in mind 24,000 tonne per annum is the capacity for Train 1, they're operating at 20% of their capacity, producing 1.3 thousand tonnes of lithium hydroxide for the quarter. So 90% of that was battery grade. So less than 20% of capacity is what they're operating at there. No secrets. This has been a real pain for the company or for the TLEA joint venture for quite a while now. And they're talking about doing studies. They're going to have a bit of downtime with a major shutdown in the next quarter, Q2 of FY25, to lift the expected output rate and take them to the next level. But how close that kind of gets them to where they need to be remains to be seen. And of course, you've got Train 2 there, that's half built. And some of the wording around Train 2 was that they're going to continue doing studies on it for the next financial year, and that'll lead them to making an FID, which seems at least a year away. But, like we said last time, the market will want to see that they can operate Train 1 effectively before they sink any more money into this, with CapEx for the next financial year at up to $100 million, just for what they've got there. It's again raising an eyebrow on something that's not quite performing as it should.
What is there any numbers you can wrap around, in terms of the lithium hydroxide price, what they an actual operating cost for that plant, or is it just they just say we've lost this much money, we've sold this much and lost this much money?
So EBITDA for the last year was negative 357 million for Kwinana.
Yeah,
that's pretty startling, and there's a lot of sort of questions on the call, given that a lot of these downstream plants in China are really struggling. Like, what is the margin they're making? What is the goal up for grabs, and how much have you spent to get there? If you dive really into the weeds, more than you've got the chance to in a couple hours before the show, you can probably get there. But yeah, I mean, you're asking the right question and trying to understand what are the margins they can expect, and are they ever going to see it really?
Yeah, and it's seems to be parallels to the BHP's nickel sulfate in a way, thinking I'll be keen to understand how saleable it is as well, because I assume it's just going straight to Tianqi, to their battery.
They are giving the product to battery makers, and there's still a qualification period where, you give samples, the battery maker says, yeah, hey, this is good, this is consistent, this meets what we need. But that's a process that takes a bit of time, and it's still in place. And it's still going to take a while yet before they can lock in a set bunch of customers that are happy with the quality of their product.
Yeah, so it's like one of the same as the nickel sulfate. Why would the battery makers buy the hydroxide from over here at a premium for someone else to convert it, where they could just buy spodumene concentrate, convert it themselves, and do it all in the one country?
Yeah,
don't know how that works. That landscape works.
It depends if you're selling it to a fully integrated battery maker and all those sorts of things. Not all of them are. So there are battery makers out there that will want to buy your lithium hydroxide, but they'll want a reliable product that comes out the exact same as the previous quarter, as the quarter before that, and the quarter before that. And on the back of that, it takes a while to get there. You need to be doing it for quite a while before the customer's happy.
God, they reckon building a mine's hard. Downstream's a whole new level.
You know what? I bet they wish they never did it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right, nickel,
Nova. So couple sides of the nickel operations.
Nova.
So Nova did better, largely on the back of copper, actually. So the copper kicked up, the saleable amount of copper kicked up, and obviously the price, I think, was 12 or 13% better than the previous quarter. So that led to the top line being 30% better. And then Forestania, also nickel, there were several large seismic events down there at Spotted Quoll, and here are some other words they added, Maddie: a requirement to replace some ground support, delayed access to some stoping fronts. So the question asked is, are they using DSI?
Well, because it also said they're pretty much going into early care and maintenance for spotted quoll
It did. That has
for
been
Forestania.
brought forward.
So then it must, the only reason you would go into care and maintenance is when you've put in a fuck ton of DSI bolts, like an absolute metric fuck ton of them, and even that hasn't held it together, because that's the last thing any underground mine would do. Because if for some reason they weren't using DSI, probably the mines department would make them convert to DSI. Trial that first. If that doesn't, like, I don't think you're legally allowed to shut a mine down unless you've trialled DSI bolts.
At least,
for that reason.
At least investors will, they'll know that you tried.
Yeah, it's your last Hail Mary.
Gave it a red hot go.
Yeah, so but I'd assume spotted quoll, like, it's been going for a couple of decades or something. Oh, nearly a couple of decades. If it's been going that long, it's probably been using DSI. So, all just assumptions.
So anyone else that wants to stay in business, just chuck in your orders.
Yeah. So, it's pretty, although it's heard it's at depth challenging. So, so ticking away.
Yep, it's going to be shut down a bit earlier than anticipated. And
more workers being injected into the industry.
Yeah, and the on the back of that, cash flow looks quite good because a lot of the capital costs just drop right off. So they report an underlying free cash flow of $25 million for the quarter, which it's a marketable jump up on the $2 million from the quarter before that.
Yeah, right.
But didn't they sneak that one in on like page 11 or something like that?
Yeah, they did, mate.
Care and maintenance.
So you've got the section up top on spotted quoll, Forestania more broadly, and then you have to go near the bottom when they're talking about operations. Say, oh hey, actually we're going to be getting care and maintenance going in the quarter. That transition's happening right away.
I think, but it's more of a positive, isn't it, in this nickel environment? When you're at an end-of-life nickel mine that's marginal, if not losing money, well, wouldn't you shut it down?
Are they going to have anything left in nickel?
Just Nova.
Because
I assume, is Flying Fox already finished? Yeah. So there was Flying Fox for spotted quoll with Forestania, and then obviously Nova's got, year and a bit?
Depends, yeah. How do you look? Yeah.
Year and a bit of rock factory. So Nova's all right because it's just a rock factory. It's all pretty much developed. So they'll probably still make money. They're still making money.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, where does that kind of leave the business? If you look at the investment they're going to put into the business over the coming year, FY25, upper bound of $950 million at Greenbushes. That is obviously for all of Greenbushes there. Up to $100 million at Kwinana, up to 60 million on exploration. That has been sort of brought down. 6 million at Nova. 15 million goes out the door for Cosmos care and maintenance. That was previously flagged. Forestania ramped down care and maintenance. I don't know, guess 20 million bucks or something like that. Not exactly sure. So that's a lot of outflows going out the door. And if you just look at Greenbushes specifically, because that's the asset that kind of matters, right? Using the production guidance midpoint and assuming US $900 a ton, that's roughly where we kind of are. That's Aussie 1.9 billion in revenue. Again, this is for the whole asset, 500 million in OPEX using the midpoint that they kind of provide. That leaves you $500 million, 100 million in royalties as a 5% flat royalty on lithium in WA. Leaves you 400 million. I'd say another 70-ish gets you to the total unit cost of goods sold as another operating cost that sort of sit outside the cash costs there, and then you get 25% of that being IGO's share. That is very rough math, and there could be some mistakes.
I think that was 900 mil capex. I think you missed saying as well.
Yeah, 900 mil capex as well. So that doesn't leave an awful lot of potential free cash flow in the coming year for
at this price.
Yeah. So it leaves you asking a few sort of questions, and when you kind of, as an investor, if you were in the business, think about catalyst to what's sort of happening going forward. We've sort of had a bit of a debate about M&A potentials. Maybe they go into copper or something else.
Gold. Go back to their roots.
Maybe put less odds on that one, but there's a potential. I think also just sort of sorting out the relationship. They've been working on that with TLEA and within.
You can't. They'll say that. But you can't. It's in the joint venture what your rights are. You can't fucking amend the joint venture without consent of the other joint venture partners.
Yeah, of course, but they have done that already and they've made it better. I'm just saying they're on the right path there. that the pricing has improved, hasn't it?
Yes, the pricing has improved, but I thought you were talking more about like capital allocation to Kwinana and
just
stuff like that.
just having a sort of better relationship. I mean, I think the Kwinana one is a bit easier than the whole Winfield one, given how that's sort of set up. But if they can just work on those sorts of things, and then the last sort of catalyst when I think about the business is CGP 1 and 2, just working on the recoveries. We went through it in great detail a couple months ago, but if they can really get them up, that can be a sort of huge boon for the cash flow of the business. They're spending a huge amount of money on other parts of the business. So if they can just notch up those from whatever they were, low 60s percentages up to 70s, then that is, that would be money well spent.
Yeah, that's how you offset a bit of a commodity price downturn.
It is.
Start fine, too, because never had to worry about it before. Just made a shitload of money.
You think about the iron ore majors and what they did in 2015, 16 onwards, they really just honed their unit operating costs, and they pulled them down a long way in the downturn when they were forced to. And a few years later, when iron ore picked up again, they were reaping the rewards for it. Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Speaking of copper, maybe they're going to check some of these out. And this was your prediction, actually. Check out these bloody grades of these intersections. A big MAC, the MAC the X SPAC from the great CSA mine. These are like from this QTSN ore body, which is the big sucker at CSA. Got down to, what's that, about depth of extent of drilling, 2,200 metres. So she's getting deep. Bloody 20.4 metres at 7.9% copper. Buddy, there's the other highlight, but 22.1 metres at 9.8% copper. Buddy, I don't think they're true width. And they've also got these show results of the upper area. I think they call it the QTS South Upper. So even like 1.6 at 18%. 2.2 at 18.9. So there's like a little potential snatch and grab they've got up the top there, which looks about 250 metres underground. So, yeah, God. And then Sandfire. We missed these ones the other week. Well, we never talk about exploration too much. Can you get a more American name here? The Johnny Lee Copper Deposit in Montana, John Dutton territory. God, we know how bloody John Dutton and the locals feel about any disturbance to the land there. So it's going to be a tough one. But 1.8 metres at 15.3%. 8.5 at 6.6, 13.2 at 12.8. So, mate, there is some high-grade copper out there. It's out there. So it's obviously not at the scale of CSA. I think they're about, got about 1 million tonne at 6% in that high-grade bit. So, anyway, very, very
It'd be fascinating to see what happens down the track with Black Butte, given the company's sort of comments in the recent quarterly.
Yeah. And I think, was there a bit of chat going around that it's difficult for them in terms of time zone, like bringing that online is complex for the business, like another level.
Just adds sort of corporate complexity was the kind of language they'd use, and they'd need to see a big step up in whether that's a new discovery or something like that. So remains to be kind of seen.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Trav?
I reckon JD listens to the call pretty acutely, and he seems to think that this in its current form would be unlikely to be, pursued by Sandfire. So maybe they sell it, maybe they bring in a different operating partner so they can maintain their lean kind of corporate model or something like that. But yeah,
and that was sort of 30,000 tonne per annum. That was part of that initial plan. But
who would they bring in?
You'd probably just sell it.
You'd just sell it, wouldn't you?
Sell the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean it is its own listed thing. There's a sort of structure.
Take a non-controlling interest in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as it stands, they own 87% of.
Yeah, and the rest is
free float, isn't it?
So they own 87% of Sandfire America.
Yeah.
But does that? Who owns 100% of the? And Sandfire America own 100% of the project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Righto.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Mate, copper exploration heating up. Speaking of exploration, here's another Diggers and Dealers announcement. Ryan O'Sullivan from K-Drill will be signing autographs. I've just got the schedule here. D. Benali's each night from 6 till 7. The Exchange, 7 till 8. He's going to have a bit of a break after that, and then you'll find him at the Gold Bar, 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. No, 12 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
He's doing like he's on
Night shift.
he's sort of doing a bit of a night shift set
Yeah.
up. Probably wake up 4:30, have a feed, then get into autograph mode.
This feels more like a crossover kind of shift.
Yeah. Shift change.
Shift change.
Shift change.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be just like a shift change. So, some questions you can ask him when you run into Rhino Sullivan. I've got them written out here. Ask him how good K-Drill's RC sample management procedures are. He's got a good yarn about that. Ask him how bloody good K-Drill are to work for. You might even get a job out of it. And this is the big one. Ask him how good K-Drill is now going since the injection of Drew Harvey and taking K-Drill into another atmosphere. Like Drew Harvey's classed as he's the prince of Perth business development.
Good footy.
And he's now at K-Drill. So look out for the K-Drill boys at bloody Diggers. Oh, I can't wait.
Go K-Drill.
I reckon Drewber will be keen for a pint. He doesn't mind the occasional pint.
Just come around, have a chin wag. have a pint.
Friday afternoon.
Righto, good old Perseus, the bloody
Cash printer.
The gold star out of Africa. 121,000 ounces for the quarter, all in sustaining costs US 1173. So actually down 5.5% today on this quarterly. It's a bit of a sea of red across the goldies, but not by this much, except Bellevue. They're down about that as well.
Why is that? What stood out, Matt?
With Bellevue.
The former rather than the latter.
Perseus. So, look, if you look at this graph, it shows our pretty consistent performance for the company. The company's had since the Yaouré, is that how you pronounce it, JD? Yaouré operation reached steady state in FY22. So, but you can see by this quarter, gold production sort of down 5%, which obviously, if gold's down, all costs are up. So, which you've seen, and gold price is up, but they do have 24% hedged of their forward-looking gold production for the next 3 years at about US 2,200. So not too bad considering gold prices around US 24. So they actually, so if you look at what they paid 151 US for the OreCorp transaction this quarter. So if you discount that, looking at the waterfall, they added US 36 million, so about Aussie 55. So not a bad quarter, but they've got a bit more in the tank for what Perseus can actually produce. So, and few contributing factors are, so Yaouré operation, that's the Côte d'Ivoire one, like the grades sort of dropped from 1.73 in the December quarter down to 1.5. Both the waste and ore haulage was pretty down. So, and they said they've implemented an accelerated mining program in the second half, which the previous second half, which sort of didn't really hit the mark, they said, but by the end of the quarter it did. So they reckon they're going to be caught back up by December quarter, which delayed them getting to some higher grade stopes. But
Matty,
accelerated mining program usually means more machinery, more people and higher costs. So you can probably expect that to come. Edikan in Ghana. Eddie Can. Bloody, you got Africa sorted. Hey,
Very
lovely.
Very sparsely.
I'm good with like Queensland politician names and stuff.
Well, I'm keen to see how you go on the next asset when we get there.
Is that Sisingwe?
I think cheers for that. Eddie Can in Ghana, that was pretty in line. Sisingwe, so they just missed their FY24 guidance. There was 65,000 ounces. They got 64, but it's only 12.5% of Perseus's total gold production. The Eddie Can and bloody Yaouré they're the big suckers. So, and Sisingwe had a horrid start in Q1 for the last financial year, so because it was pissing down with rain. So did a good job to get close to guidance. So I guess what's happening, the growth for Perseus, obviously the Nyanzaga project in Tanzania, previously OreCorp, expecting FID by the end of the year and a 2-year development timeline following that. So first gold expected Q1 2027. So that's still 2.5 years away.
End of calendar year?
Yeah. Q1 2027 calendar year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so by end of year. Yeah. But yeah, calendar year. Bloody US and Aussie, it makes it confusing.
They don't make your life easy.
Yeah, no, they did a good job. I probably didn't say it properly. Then they've also got there's also the CMA underground at Yaouré. That's the That's expected to begin early FY26. So, but that'll be actually the first underground mine in Côte d'Ivoire. So Perseus have had to have worked with the Mineral Commission to establish regulatory framework because probably didn't exist because there's no underground. So, still got to go through the approval process for that. So, like you couple that with the framework to be developed. Not sure how that's going to go.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Quick read. That was from a quick read. So, but I'm sure they're working very bloody hard at it. A bit to play out for the future for these two growth projects. So, it's still. Well, it looks like once they get Ore back singing, should be printing some cash. Aussie 50 mil for a bad quarter. Still not a bad result.
Totally.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Sudan growth project is firmly on the back burner now.
Yeah,
not much of a mention about that one.
Sell it to the Saudis. They'd have a crack, wouldn't they? Or the Chinese.
They're not scared of going to most places. Let's see how you go.
Or Russia. They'll take it.
I'm not sure how much competitive tension you get.
China versus Saudi versus Russia. Now, that'd be a takeover battle. I like it.
You know the Chinese and the Russians had a bidding war over Cardinal?
Where's Cardinal? Which one's that?
That is...
I think it was
Ghana?
Yeah, I want to say.
Ghana.
Yeah.
That was a juicy one. I think it started at 37 cents and went up to 95.
Just kept going.
Yeah, right.
Nort Gold with the Russians.
They were both best and final at the
same
exact
price.
same price. So they had to, I think it was the Chinese, created a fake country and a fake bidder out of, I think it was Guinea or something like that. It said these bidders were coming from.
That sounds familiar.
What year was this?
And then that allowed them Chinese to come in and actually bid a couple cents higher and get it done.
Started 2020. Yeah. It might have been 21 by the time it wrapped.
Yeah.
The pod would have held that for sure.
It would have been a hard one to hold.
Oh, beautiful. You know what is easy to hold? A Champ Gyro. An Axis Champ Gyro. Just pick it up, throw it down the hole.
Same with the Ori.
Trust them every time. Axis Mining Tech, thank you very much. And all these people will be probably a digger, so make sure you go say good day to them and tell them how fucking cool they are for supporting us. Mineral Mining Services, VRIFY, GetWet Solutions, DSI Underground, Silverstone, CRE Insurance, Jero James is coming.
He's coming.
Oh, me and him are having a sesh. WA Waterbores. K-Drill and Spark. Don't know if there's Spark people there. Maybe. Yeah, just find them.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.